Okay, all right. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First Sunday of the new year. All right, we're ready, right? We're rocking and rolling. We're getting ready to go here. So I want to welcome everyone out. Thank you for being here this morning. I don't see that we really have any visitors. Everyone looks familiar to me, but if you are a visitor, thank you for being with us today, and thank you to all the regulars too. So it's good to have you guys.
What about
everyone.
the irregulars?
So, we'll go ahead right now and get started with our announcements for today. And the first one, Mickey is going to talk a little bit about what we have as far as what we're going to be voting on for the questions, right?
Do you want me to come up?
Yes.
Okay. Morning, everybody. Morning. So for the last couple of weeks and in the newsletter that Lauren has been sending out, you have seen the two options of classes, right? Yes? Okay. So I have those again, and today I'm passing out a ballot. So I would like for you to please indicate your preference of which of the two classes, and then we're also asking for your opinions and your preferences about day of week, time of day, length of class, etc. So I'm going to hand out some pins with this. What I really appreciate, it's really simple. All you have to do is circle your preference and then hold on to them, and I'll come back around and pick them up. And then our worship committee is going to meet after service today. We will be looking at your ballots like almost real time. So your vote and your participation today is really important. So any questions before we start that? No, okay, so I've got the ballot and I've got the description of the two classes and I've got pens. So I'll hand those out. And you can go on while I'm doing that.
All right,
I'll be
thank you.
stealth.
All righty, and then our next announcement, okay, so as Mickey alluded to, the worship committee is going to be meeting right after service today. And what they're looking for too, in addition to their regular duties, is we're looking for new members. Anybody that may want to join, hey, now is the time. So they're looking for new people, some new ideas. So, you know, if you feel led to actually join this particular committee, it would be greatly appreciated. So thank you guys very much for that. Patrick has a letter that he wants to read to us from one of our charities that we support, a Turning Point.
Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
Yeah, so for those who don't know me, I'm Patrick Henry. I'm speaking as my role on the outreach committee this morning. And on that committee too is Jeff and then Lauren Lowe, who is helping to coordinate some things this coming year. It's always good to start the year with a thank you. And that's what I've got here. And it comes from Kathy, who is the director of Turning Point. So here's how she phrases this. Happy New Year, 2020. This is Kathy speaking. I wanted to take a moment to express our deepest gratitude for CUO's support, sponsorship, and engagement with the Turning Point in 2019. So many great things have happened, and only because of your congregation's faithfulness. Here are a few of the 2019 highlights you may be excited about hearing, interested in sharing. I'm going to give the highlights for the Center for their whole organization, and then share what we did as a part of this. Okay, first of all, so if you don't know, if you haven't been down there, actually I'm going to pull this out. I think I will. There we go. All right, so small building there in Broadmoor down on Wilcomas. The food pantry served almost 25,000 people. 25,000, 24,795 to be exact. But then again, I ate some of them there, so that'd be 96. 6,534 people shopped at their warehouse, their clothing. So we may do some clothing donations. And so they had over 6,500 people go through that little, just one room. There's a lot of little clothes, blue jeans, clothing, whatever people donate. And that's something we participate in. their academy. This is an academy, an actual school. It's not a GED. They actually get a high school diploma. They had 35 adult students go through that and complete that. And again, you're invited to be tutors and teachers and participants in that program. So that's great. 692 backpacks full of school supplies were given out. I don't think we participated in that this year, but we can. So that's something we put on our list for next fall. It assisted 33 households in avoiding eviction through our blessings. And those blessings were, we made 2 donations, cash donations, I think 500 each time, to the Turning Point. So that's an example where some of that money went. Some of the other money, about 182 families received Christmas assistance. These were families, by the way, these are families that come in, no questions asked. They do not have to apply or go through the government system, and that's so important because oftentimes there's snags. If there's any alcohol or drug use, sometimes they don't qualify for state and local funding. So these are people who walk in and have a need, no questions asked, and they get that. Okay, so what did we do? I mentioned the cash donations, so thank you for that. That's some of your weekly donations that we set aside that actually went to Turning Point. Kim headed up. She's not an official member of the committee, but we'll make her the queen of the committee, because she kind of spearheaded this program at Christmas over Advent, collected over 500 pounds of food and $294 of cash. Thank you, Kim. Wow. See, this is rather remarkable for a small group that we've had that much donation, contribution, involvement, and we're going to do even more this coming year. So give yourselves a hand for your participation. Kathy has asked to come and speak, so sometimes perhaps we'll have her on the schedule. She has a presentation of spirituality for loving and giving to the poor, and we'll try to get her on the agenda sometime. And so thank you very much. A good start for 2020.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, and Terry Weedy has asked to share a few comments as well today.
Make this short. I want to thank everyone who sent prayers and energy for my family and myself in regards to my father's passing. And I'll mention a few people. I want to thank those who sent cards: David, Robin, Stanley, Ruth Ann McElroy, Bill and Ida Clayton, Teddy Broughton, and anyone I might have missed. I feel like I should mention Glenn Cook and Raymond Tyson too. And I want to thank Bill and Barb Herzog for coming to the visitation and for food they brought. Neil and Lynn Burdick for coming to the visitation and funeral. Jeff Jans and Mickey Schroeder for coming to the visitation and funeral and bringing food. And Doug and Kim Martin for coming to the visitation and funeral and bringing food as well. It was nice to feel that the community was involved in my father's funeral. So again, thank you to all of you. Thank you for being there and all the prayers as well. Overall, it was a good service. Some traditional hymns were played and everyone sang along to them, and that made it kind of fun. So I appreciate all of the support, and thank you for being there. That's it.
Okay, and Barb Herzog, you wanted to share a few thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to announce that Paul Hasselbeck gave us a love offering, and he said, "Dear CEO, I am so grateful for all the opportunities you have given me to speak. I appreciate the extra mile your team went for PowerPoint. Thank you again for all your love and support, Paul."
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
Nice, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we have a great service for you today. We have welcoming back our friends Tracie and John Loux. Yeah. So we want to welcome them back. Is this the first time you've been in our new place? No, you've been. Okay, so I haven't been here. Okay, all right. So welcome back, guys. And we have a bonus because we get John to do our music too. So that is wonderful. So glad to have you guys back here today. Is there any other special announcements that needs to come before the congregation today?
Fill out the survey.
The survey, okay, did you guys receive the survey from
On
Kim
email.
Martin? Yes. You did, okay, so she's asking, if you haven't already, how many do you have filled them out roughly already?
I have 15, I think, that have filled it out.
15, okay.
I'd sure like at least 10 more.
You hear that? There's a call to action, guys, right there. If you could get that survey filled out, it's going to be very important in helping determine, what we really want, what we're looking for, especially as far as classes and things like that are concerned. So, yeah, if you have some time here this week, certainly get that filled out. Okay, and now we will, I will go ahead and read it up. We ring the bowl in universal oneness and feel the vibration that unites us in love and peace. Our pre-lit candle symbolizes the Christ-like presence in all of us. So again, I'm Dan Sproul, and again, I want to welcome everyone out this morning. Happy New Year, happy first Sunday of the year 2020. And I want to take just a moment to ask everyone if you would please mute your cell phones before we get started here. And Doug Martin is going to be offering us our opening prayer today.
Good morning. Let us enter into the presence of God. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Glory to God in the highest. We have recently celebrated the Christ coming into the world and into our lives, and we rejoice. We know that the truth of God endures and gives us a peace that eliminates fear and frees us from the bondage of our desires and self-centeredness. We rejoice. We know that the love of God enfolds us and brings a beauty and goodness into our life, and we rejoice. Our hearts are filled with gratitude because the presence of God makes our lives possible and real, and it extends us into our own being, and we rejoice. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
I know that you feel this human existence, but you still give love with no resistance, and your words heal the wounded soul, and your light it wraps around us all, and I don't know how you can fit in, 'cause you are light with skin, you are light with skin. 'cause you are light with skin. You are light with skin. Everyone wants to be where you've been. You are light with skin. You are light with skin. I know how you break it. You are light with skin. You are light with skin. Everyone wants to be where you've been. 'Cause you are light with skin. You are light with skin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I love that song so much. I love that truth that in spite of, or perhaps because of, this human condition that we are all in right now, we grow and we exude light and life and healing to others when we choose to let that human experience grow in us, that divine light, and I love that. Thanks, John. All right, well, good morning. We're super glad to be back. One quick little announcement, and I will shoot off an email too, so you can send links to women that might be interested, but this is the time of year when Unity Village hosts their annual one-day women's retreat. That's coming up January 25th. So if you are looking for a day of renewal, a time to get away and be with other women seeking to grow in love and to be renewed, I will get that information so that email can go out. I will be there. I will not be speaking this year, but I will be there. All right. It's a new year. I'm guessing that most of you, if not all of you, have spent a little time over the last week or so thinking about releasing or letting go. I think possibly Reverend Diana last week shared a little bit about releasing and letting go. We take this time of year to think about what is no longer serving me, what is holding me back, what is causing resistance in my life. And how many people have spent some time thinking about those things? Yeah. What am I letting go of? What is no longer serving us? And I was thinking over the last couple weeks that there are a couple challenges that we typically face when we're thinking about this, when we're writing, when we're journaling, when we're meditating about this release. And the first one is that we need to understand that when we release, there has to be also a shift of intention that comes along with it. And it's that shift that begins the process of replacing that space in our heart that has been emptied with something new. So we release, if you imagine us like a vessel, we're releasing something, we're creating a space in there with that thing we let go of. So the first thing I'm going to talk about today is how do we fill that space? What is the process of filling that space with something new, with something life-giving? And then the second challenge that has been challenging for me, just as an individual on this journey, is that some things can't be released. They are simply part of our human condition. Nothing can change the fact that this experience has happened to you, that you have walked through this loss, or that you are dealing with this chronic illness. That you can't, those are part of the human condition. However, what we can release in the midst of that human experience, we can release the false narrative that we may have begun to believe about who we are in the midst of that story. And we can learn how to integrate that experience through the process of healing into creating a new narrative about how we show up in the world. So I'm going to kind of dig into those two things this morning. Anybody want to share something that they might be intending to release this year? I mean, I have a list of some things that are typically common. Anybody? Okay, that's all right. How about some of the things I thought of when I was like, what are we all wanting to release? The expectations of other people that we put onto ourselves, sense of unworthiness, personal pressure for being perfect, unforgiveness surrounding a relationship or a specific circumstance. I think that's something that we all deal with periodically throughout the year. Yes, releasing that unforgiveness, because we know that that can just really bottle up the flow of divine love and divine energy inside of us. Judgments of ourselves or judgments we have about other people, negative self-talk, a poverty mindset. These are all the sort of things that people typically think about releasing at this time of the year. So if we imagine ourselves like that vessel that I mentioned earlier, a container, and we are releasing something that has taken up a significant amount of space in that vessel, there is some valuable real estate there that is waiting for something to take up residence. So we need to ask ourselves then, what do I need to pour into that space that I've just made in my heart? And oftentimes, that will line right up with the word that you may have for the year. Does anybody have a word for their new year? I've seen that on Facebook lately. What is my word for the year? Strength or freedom or healing or whatever the word is. Oftentimes that will be the opposite of the thing that you've just released. A year or so ago when I was here, I talked about the power of denials coupled with affirmation. And there's a real similarity here that comes into play with where denying that thing, I let go of that sense of unworthiness. Okay, so there's a denying of a thing that is no longer serving us, and then affirming or refilling our vessel with the opposite of what we have just released. So if I say, I release myself from all feelings of unworthiness, and then you affirm, I affirm that I am wholly loved and completely accepted and worthy of all love and support. So there's a denying and a releasing that takes place, and then a filling or an affirming. We recently downsized over the last couple of years our home. We had been living in our previous home for 11 years, so a lot of things happened in 11 years. We added 4 children to our family during that 11 years. We had teenagers grow up and become adults and move out of the house over those 11 years. A lot of life happened in 11 years. And we were at the point where our 3 older children had moved out and launched into their life of independence. And we had 3 at home now in a house that was suited for 7. And there were some other issues that came into play, but it was time for a fresh start for our family. And so in doing that, in knowing that we were going to downsize, we were going to be releasing, I knew that what I wanted to create in that releasing was a place for connection, for healing, a place for togetherness for our family, a place for creativity to be explored. So as I was releasing, how many of you have done some physical releasing in your homes over the last few weeks? Cleaned out a couple closets, yeah? So when you're moving a family of 9 to a home that is suited for a family of 5, there is some serious releasing that happens, okay? There was a releasing of furniture, of clothing, of stuff. I didn't need 5 9x12 casserole dishes anymore, 1 or 2 would work. So I went through things. If anybody's familiar with Marie Kondo, the magic of tidying up or whatever, she goes through this thing where she talks about letting go of what no longer brings you joy. So I utilized some of that as I was doing this house purging. Does this bring me joy? Does it serve a purpose in my life? Why am I holding on to it? am I holding it onto it for the sake of someone else's feelings? Am I holding it onto what is the reason? Do I need this? Does it bring me joy? And Marie says in her book, she says, it's easy to get rid of things when there is an obvious reason for doing so, but it is more difficult when there is no compelling reason. So I had my reason in mind as I was downsizing, as I was purging and cleaning and releasing. My intention, my compelling reason, was that I wanted to create a new space for my family. As I mentioned earlier, a space that was peaceful, that would bring healing, that had room for creative expression in it. There were a lot of compelling reasons at the forefront of my mind. Those compelling reasons kept me moving forward in that releasing process. And so as we do that with the things that we release from our physical body, this home, this vessel, having an intention for what you want to fill or what you want to create with that space, those things you've let go, keeps us moving forward. It propels us, it reminds us to quit looking in the rearview mirror and focusing on that thing we've let go of and to be looking forward. We can glance back in that rearview mirror to acknowledge the work that we're doing. Yeah, I'm letting go of this. I'm moving forward. Almost to give yourself a wink in that mirror, because you see your reflection when you look in the rear view sometimes too. Give yourself a wink and a thumbs up. You're doing a great job. Keep moving forward. Acknowledge the good work of releasing, but keep focused on the intention, that compelling reason that you are doing the releasing. I had an opportunity this summer to work with an individual in his home in doing this. It was a big project. It represented years of not releasing things. But this gentleman had a very strong intention, very strong. His intention was set on personal healing. He knew it was going to be hard work as well as physical work. And it was focused on creating a space for his family to really thrive in togetherness and for his business and his creative endeavors to have a true place to do the work they were intended to do. So I was blessed to be able to, that he trusted me to walk through this releasing with him. And so we would go through section by section of his home, and it was healing for him. It was emotional. It would have been impossible to do had he not had an intention for doing so, a reason for letting go of this. And he released a lot of clutter, like we all do. I cleaned out a closet yesterday, and I was like, where did all this clutter come from? Why is this in here? He released a lot of other people's things that he was storing for them. I mean, you can think about that on the physical. How many of you are storing your adult children's things or your teenage? I'm like, hello, I am not your storage unit. Just garbage that collects, recycling that he hadn't taken, it's taken up space in the garage because he hadn't taken it to the recycling place, sorting through things. And then sometimes the hard work of going through loved ones' belongings who are no longer with us. And he was dealing with this with some of his dad's things. I've dealt with this, our story, having to choose to release things that belong to our son, Maddie. It is a process, and it is, this was something we did together. His goal was in the forefront, and as a result of his hard work, and physical, yes, but emotional for sure, he created the space that he desired for expansion, and he, in the process, received a couple very large art commissions, significant, that were going to take care of him financially for the year that he would not have had space to say yes to had he not said yes to the releasing. So as we think about the seemingly big thing, little thing that we want to release from this physical vessel, this dwelling place of our spirit, remembering that we are making space for good. We are making space for much more. We are creating space for us to thrive and grow and to really see come to life those things we are affirming that we want to see in our lives. I had an experience this summer, and it was challenging. It was a really hard releasing experience. I had traveled to speak in San Antonio, Texas, to a group of bereaved parents to encourage them at a memorial service that was focused on healing and honoring the lives of the children that they had lost. And I had a day or two before I spoke to enjoy the city and to, eat some good food and to be on the river walk. But there was one occasion where I had gone out to dinner with a couple of people one of who was hosting me. And as we were walking back to the parking garage, this gentleman pointed to a church that had a tarp over it and some construction fence around it, clearly a very old historical building. And he said something that literally stabbed my heart. He made a joke about the roof falling in. He goes, "It's because they let the gays in." And I literally could feel this visceral reaction to that. And my reaction initially is really anger. I was furious. And he didn't stop at that. He kept talking, and I will not repeat the stuff he said beyond that. It was pure vitriol. It was horrible. I was shaking. And at one point, he said something, and I said, "You know what?" I said, "That is not why the roof caved in. That's a very old building. It's over 100 years old. That's why the roof caved in." I said something like that. It was just like, I had to say something. It was like, no, that's not why that happened. And then I had to get in the car with this person as part of the group, and they had to drive me to my hotel, and I was just like, he just kept talking, and I'm like, just breathe, just get out of the car, and you're gonna have to work through this. So I got back to the hotel, and of course I called John, and that was my first, because it's okay to be angry about things that are unjust, and I needed to say a few things. I was not happy. But I also had to show up for 200 people the next morning and speak to them about healing after going through trauma and loss. I had to show up with divine love radiating out of here, not with the kind of anger that I was holding as I was getting ready to go to bed. And so I knew that I talked to John. I knew I needed to rest. Got a shower, I drank some tea, I meditated myself to sleep, and then in the morning, I'm still dreading this because I have to go be in the same presence as this person. And so I looked up the name of the church that we had passed by, and I found the website and the story of what was happening, and I saw that they were, doing some fundraising to repair this. I think the church was 200 years old. It was very, very old. It was a gorgeous building. And then I saw an invitation to join them. They were having church in the park across the street from because the church was not usable. And so I thought, that is where I need to be this morning. That is where I will show up. That is where I will get my heart centered back in a place of love. And so I walked, and as I walked, I could see this beautiful park in the city, and I walked across, and I could see these beautiful, gorgeous people having a sacred assembly together. And there was so much love, so much the opposite of what I had experienced. The hatred and the vitriol and the unkindness and the mean-spirited talk that I had heard. It was the absolute opposite. So I sat on the grass, it was wet, I didn't care. I sat on the grass and I just allowed myself to be present in this place of love. And it was a way for me to turn my heart into that opposite place, the opposite of hatred, and into love. And I got on my phone and I got on Twitter and I shared their story and I put a link to their fundraiser on Facebook. I made a donation. I had several friends quickly make donations to this church as well. And it was that space of acting in the opposite, of breathing in the opposite, that I was able to release fully that anger. Eric Butterworth says, "You ask for life by affirming life. You ask for success by getting into the consciousness of success. You ask for peace by affirming peace and letting the spirit of peace permeate your heart and mind." I was asking for peace that morning. I was asking for love. So I put myself in the space of love, in a space much like this. And I was filled up and I was able to release, to shake off the words that were spoken in my presence, and to posture myself in love so that I could go into that afternoon speaking event from that place of love without the residual anger holding on to me. So that's just, I wanted to share that because that's a personal example of the everyday stuff that we have to deal with when we get on Facebook, when we read the news. We have to be able to release and step into the opposite. When we see things in the news that are painfully hard to hear about, what do we do with that? We can't sit in and marinate in our anger and frustration, in our disagreement. We have to walk in and begin speaking in the opposite of that. All right, so back to the second challenge that I mentioned at the beginning, where when we think about releasing and letting go, acknowledging that there are some things that can't be released. They're simply part of the fabric of our lives. They're part of our human experience. Betrayal, trauma, grief, life circumstances, sickness. You can't release those things in and of themselves. You can't make them unhappen, right? We can't unhappen them. However, what we can do is release ourselves from the false narrative that we've believed about those experiences and learn how to write a new story about that. So the danger in these things that are part of the human experience is that after time of experiencing these things, we begin to identify with those things as part of our identity instead of just as experiences that are happening in us. And then they begin to define us. I used to work for a physical therapist for just a short period of time. She was a friend of mine. I was between teaching jobs and she needed an office person, and I helped her. And I was always amazed at people's healing, watching their healing when they came in expressing that they were excited to be there, they were looking forward to being there, as opposed to those that came in that had almost owned their sickness as part of their identity. Like, my whatever, they would put the word "my" in front of their diagnosis. My this is getting the worst of me today. It was almost like part of, they had to use that sickness as part of the definition of who they are. And it really held them back. So releasing the idea that we are defining ourselves by those experiences. I quit using the word bereaved mother because it feels like I'm wearing grief as like part of my identity. It doesn't mean that I'm not daily grieving the death of my son. It doesn't mean that I am releasing grief. I can't release grief any more than I could release how much I loved my son. They kind of go together. But I can release defining myself with that as like, this is who I am now. So as we begin the process of healing from whatever this human condition has brought our way, when we choose healing, when we begin to find the courage to rewrite the story, and the painful past is a little further in that rearview mirror, when we begin to possibly even celebrate the knowledge or the transformation that we are experiencing because we chose that healing. I'm grateful for who I am because of what I have chosen to heal from and grow through in the midst of grief. I don't thank grief for that. I thank myself for choosing to heal and grow. I'm not grateful my son died, but I can sit in gratitude for the transformation that I've allowed to happen in myself as a result of that experience. So to rewrite the story is realizing that when I do take a glance in the rearview mirror and then catch my gaze in that same mirror, realizing that I am looking at a stronger, more compassionate human being now than the person before. Rumi has a quote that I keep framed on my mantle of my fireplace, and it says, "Sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house so that new joy can find space to enter. It shakes the yellow leaves from the boughs of your heart so that fresh green leaves can grow in their place. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath them have room to grow." We can't escape the experiences that come our way as we are here as humans on this planet showing up. But we can rewrite the story. We can allow the experiences to create space for growth. It's actually the feelings of sadness, walking through grief, experiencing betrayal, pain, or trauma of any kind, that we can then feel those opposites more fully and appreciate them as beautiful gifts. I appreciate so many things much more strongly than I did before walking through such a traumatic death in our family. I don't take things for granted. I treasure the little moments more than I ever have before. And I'm sure many of you can attest to that. Experiences in your life that have jolted you so much that you now see their opposites as so much more beautiful. Whether it's betrayal or grief or sickness, you see those opposites, health and commitment and trust and joy and beauty and connection to other people. You treasure them so much more dearly because you've experienced their opposite. The joy in my grandson's face holds such a more intense meaning than it might have. My granddaughter asking for help with the princess dress that she's trying to draw. I soak up those moments. The sound of my daughter's voice as she's recording a new single in the studio with her dad. I don't take that for granted. That is really special, and it brings an extreme, an overabundant amount of joy. Hearing John tuck our son Aiden in at night, and I tease them about it because it's absolutely ridiculous, the ritual that they have. And so, but they've had this ritual for so long, and over the last few years, it's become even more special and more endearing. And even though I tease them and say, "Hurry up, boys," or "You do not need another drink of water, Aiden," or "Let's wrap it up, guys," even though I tease them because it's part of the routine that I tease them, it doesn't change the fact that I hold that experience as a very sacred, beautiful thing, and it brings me so much joy every night to hear John sing show tunes from Annie, to hear Aiden teasing him, to listen to John go up the stairs to get water when he could have just taken the cup of water with him when he went down in the first place. But those are things that I hold so dearly because of the human experience, because I know how important it is to treasure those things. Falling is unavoidable, friends. Suffering is part of the human condition. But each time we get up, and I've said this in a previous talk, we get to pick up the pen and we get to imagine a brave new ending to our story. And each time we get up, we get to be stronger each time. If we learn to accept and honor the growth that suffering invites us to experience, it is then when that story, that new story, can begin to unfold. My son died. There is nothing I can do to release myself from grief. I don't want to be released from that. Grief is the space where I love him in this present moment. Yes, it might be sad some days, but sometimes grief is laughing with my husband over a funny video that we've pulled up to look at Maddie. Sometimes grief is sharing a funny story that we remember. Grief isn't always about tears, and so I don't want to be exempt from that. I do want to let go of the possibility of it to destroy me, because I'm not going to let that happen. That would not serve me. All right, so releasing that, and so in releasing that idea of devastation, of being destroyed or ruined, I then cling to its opposite, which is healing and growth and the expansion of love. I had to release the idea of what my life was supposed to look like and be open to the new narrative. So when we choose to do that work of healing, we get to become a healer. We get to point others towards tools for healing. I've been so honored to be able to sit with other people in their grief or in their trauma experience and say, here are some tools. Let me help you create a toolbox. What will work for you? And so I appreciate life, and I walk in gratitude for the things that people might take for granted. And I am grateful that I am able to be a voice of compassion to others. I'm grateful that it made me mad that that gentleman said those things as we walked by that church. I'm grateful that my heart was propelled to respond with compassion and love. So as we close here, and John, you can come on up. Let's draw close together and remember that if we focus on just the releasing, it becomes a chore. It can cause us to get stuck with our focus in the rearview mirror. So as we release, we have to shift into becoming whatever that is, whatever that opposite, embracing that opposite. I know there's times when I have thought I was going to clean out or organize or release things in my house, but I didn't really have the intention set for why, and I gave up. I lost steam. I didn't have energy. I didn't have anything to motivate me, to propel me forward. We're releasing at this time of the year in order to become. And that is great love for self when we desire to become all that we were created to be. When we have compassion for ourselves and this human experience that we are living, and we reach out towards healing, and we reach out towards affirming those things that we desire to become. So let's just take a moment and in this space, as we draw into meditation and focus on that release and then becoming. Let's just take a deep breath together. Fully inhale. Let your lungs fill all the way, and then release it fully. And again, inhale. And exhale. time. And if there is something that you had set your intention this week or last week, or that you've been working on for months or even years, something that you intend to release, bring that to mind right now. That sense of unworthiness, unforgiveness that you may be holding, releasing the idea that you are lacking or falling short in some way, whatever that thing is, bring it to mind. And with another deep breath, release that. Release it into the distance, into the rear view. And then with your eyes forward, in your mind's eye, what are you becoming as you release that thing? Find that word. What are you becoming? Listen for it. What are you becoming? What are you creating space for in your vessel right now? As you've emptied out and released, what is going to fill that space? Identify it and name it right now. Is it compassion? Is it worthiness? A sense of belonging? Is it healing? Provision? Whatever it is, name that thing. And as you breathe in and out, breathe in and I am becoming. And as you release, speak that thing to yourself. Inhale, I am becoming. Exhale. Again, I am becoming. I am becoming all that I was created to be. I hold myself right now in gratitude for the work that I am doing, the healing work that I am doing. I honor the growth and the progress that I've made, the transformation that is happening in my life. I am becoming. I am transforming. I release, and I am becoming. I release, and I am being filled. Sit for a moment, just imagining yourself, picturing yourself as some sort of a vessel. Picture a pouring out and a filling. And today, as we close this time of meditation, I see you. I honor your journey. honor your healing practice. I commend you for your desire to release. And I acknowledge the bravery of choosing to fill that space with something new, with something life-giving. And as you glance in that rearview mirror from time to time, acknowledge the bravery of the work that you're doing, the moving forward work. Give yourself a wink for a job well done. You are becoming. And so it is, and so you are, and so it will be. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Tracie. We appreciate that. Inspirational words. I had skipped and forgot to go over our mission statement and also our vision statement. So, with that being said, if we could affirm that together right now, I think I can make up for it. Okay. First, we'll go with our mission statement. The Center for Universal Oneness is a place where those who want support on their spiritual journey may join with others for mutual encouragement, inspiration, and guidance. The Center draws on these practices based in new thought and metaphysical approaches. The higher Christ consciousness provides the foundation. We strive to live in the oneness of love. And our vision statement is extending into the world faith, love, peace, and joy. Thank you. Now is the time in our service where we take up our love offering. And as you prepare your gifts, please affirm with me our offertory prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am joy-filled and grateful.
He told me to turn the mic off. I wasn't using it, and I didn't listen. I think the battery died. Here we go. The past is sneaking up on you. You can feel it breathing down your neck. The things you've left undone, the things that you've done, tangled with regret. 'Cause you're here now, so baby don't look back now. What's done is done. It's in the past. write your own story. So leave it there, don't pick it up again. Let it go, it doesn't serve you anymore. Baby, don't worry, 'cause that's your own story. You survive the changes, and you finally found your voice. You fought through the stages, but if you go back now, baby, it's your choice. But you're here now. Oh, so don't back down. 'Cause what's done is done. It's in the past. Honey, that's your own story. So leave it there, don't pick it up again. Let it go, it doesn't serve you anymore. Baby, don't worry. Oh, 'cause that's your own story. Oh, that's your own story. Oh, 'cause what's done is done. It's in the past. Honey, that's your own story. So leave it there, don't pick it up again. Let it go, doesn't serve you anymore. So let it go, it doesn't serve you anymore. Baby, don't worry. 'Cause that's your own story. That's your own story. That's your own story.
All right. Just remember this one here. Okay, so, are there any community concerns that need to be addressed at this time? Mickey?
For all of you who know John Hall, he started chemotherapy 2 weeks ago and has a bye week this week, just like the Chiefs. And he's doing well. He's feeling really positive. He's feeling pretty energetic. And Lori is gonna be doing her Enneagram workshops again because they're both feeling like he's on a pretty good path. So just thought you'd wanna know that. And they appreciate prayers.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, you, sorry.
Well, I just found out last night that one of my nephews has been having a lot of trouble with alcohol addiction. And yesterday, I think it was, they had to take him to the hospital because in the past, he had coded twice. And I didn't realize how bad it was, but this morning, they transported him from Washington, Missouri to St. John's in St. Louis because they didn't have the proper facility or machine. What they need to do is clean out his blood, his whole bloodstream. And I just asked for prayers for him to get well and get back on the road of, recovery. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. What's his
His
name?
name is Danny.
Danny, okay. Beth, okay.
For Lonnie Van Der Slice's family and friends.
Thank you. Rainbow?
I was gonna say the same thing Beth did.
Okay.
It was for Lonnie's family and peaceful transition for her.
And I believe that the service is going to be at the Unity Church this Friday, is that?
Friday at 12.
Okay, Friday at 12.
12 is the lunch.
12 is a meeting and at 1:30 is the service.
1:30 the service starts. Okay, all right, thank you. Barb?
Well, I just want to say prayers for my boys and their father. He may need a heart transplant, they have decisions to make about what he needs and what he's going through. So, his name is Mike, so he could give prayers if he makes a decision.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns that need to be brought before the congregation? Okay, and also, I would like to add that Dennis and Susan Breed are still available for prayer, prayer chaplains still. If you need to reach out to them for any reason, if you need any special prayers or counseling, they're available to us as well. So, please keep that in mind also. With that being said, please join me as we say our closing. If you would affirm it with me. Centering our hearts and minds in prayer, we let go of any thoughts of worry or challenge and simply rest in the stillness. We know that our source of strength and peace comes from God alone. We give thanks for divine order and trust that we are all held in the power of grace. Amen. And for additional information, I believe bios on John and Tracie are usually in the bulletin, correct? If you want to read a little bit more. So they should be in your bulletin if you want some additional information on our wonderful guest today. So thank you guys again, Tracie, John, for being here. And next Sunday, we will be welcoming back Reverend Donna Johnson and Graham Cruikshank will be doing our music. Yay! Okay, and now Doug will offer us our closing prayer, and then afterwards we're going to have a final song from John, and then that'll be up. Hold on, Lauren. Pardon?
Our survey, when are they going to get collected?
Just as soon as the service is over, I'll sit back and pick them up.
Okay.
Let us pray. Rest in God today. Be cognizant of His presence within you. Let Him work in you and through you. Rest in Him in perfect certainty of His eternal love. Amen.
If you know this song, sing along with me. I like closing with this song. May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way home. May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surrounds you, and the pure light within you guide your way home. Guide